So lately I've been covering a lot more of these far-right grifter channels. To be fair, this channel's much less right-wing than the ones I generally cover, but just as much of a desperate pandering grifter, which is ironic because one of his favorite insults towards media that he accuses of being woke is that it panders, but his whole thing is pandering to conservative, racist white people who hate representation, so... You know, it's a little bit funny. You know, there's a little bit of irony there that I can appreciate. His name's YoungRippa59, and I can appreciate the beard. You know, I try to say a nice thing about everybody I cover on this channel, unless they are just beyond heinous. But I don't actually think YoungRippa is that heinous, even though I think he's a dick. Last time I covered him, he was attacking a friend of mine, Surus. You know, for just really, like, bizarre reasons, calling Surus a freak, and just a lot of ad homs and whatnot. So we dunked on YoungRippa for it, and it was a real grand old time. But we haven't checked in on him in quite some time, so I wanted to see what he's been up to. But when I announced that I was going to be checking in on him and covering one of his videos, my editor was sent a message by somebody who seems to be a lot more tapped in to what's going on with him, and sent a little bit of a mega post of drama that YoungRippa is currently in as we speak. It's quite interesting. Apparently there's been a pretty significant decline in sales and potential charity fund with his comics. So he's apparently losing money on his comics, and there's been a big decline in sales and the charity fund. And charity fraud, not fund. So apparently he may also be doing charity fraud as well. He's been false flagging accounts that are being critical of his comics. One of those accounts being a parody account who is now turning up as his business address, and Eric was trying to find a way to legally shoot him. His name's Eric July, by the way. I think he used to be a cop, correct me if I'm wrong. I heard that from someone in chat earlier. Dealing with copyright issues with a Christian organization also called ISOM, and he blames it on Vito and Dick Masterson. Don't know if you know who they are, but then backtracks saying that he doesn't know who's responsible, and is currently fighting with Ethan Van Sheever over DM leaks. So I guess you guys can go look into those individual dramas as much as you deem them necessary to delve into, but apparently that's what's going on with him right now, so he's, you know, not really going, you know, he's not really doing so well right now. Ooh! And his channel performance, too. He's getting less views than me on many of his uploads. He got a random 70,000 view video a day ago that's just called Really? But besides that, he's getting less views on his videos than I do with less than 100,000 subs. He's got well over 500,000. He is really falling off. He's got a video from 2 weeks ago with less than 10,000 views. Another from 2 weeks ago with 8,000. 15, 22, 14, 13... 12, 8.5, 19, 15, 22, 9.2, 13, 16, 10. This is either my viewership or worse on a channel with more than 5 times my sub count. Woo! He's fallen off. There was a time when this guy refused to debate me on the topic of whether or not BLM was a terrorist organization that's bad for black people, because apparently I was too irrelevant. That is a funny thing to think about.
Right now, as many of you know, both writers and actors in Hollywood are on strike, and that's probably going to change very soon, but let's be precise. The Writers Guild of America is a union that represents over 11,000 screenwriters, and since May the 2nd, they've been on strike due to their disputes with the Alliance of Motion Picture and Television Producers.
For the record, this video's a bit old, but he put this out when the Hollywood strikes were happening, and the title is The Truth About the Hollywood Strikes, and the only knowledge I have going into this video, the only spoiler I've been given, is that he's anti-union. And he goes against the actors and writers union guild stuff in this, so let's hear his arguments. I'm also going to speed it up a little bit because he talks kind of slow. A lot of these grifter types talk unbearably slow to stretch that watch time out to just 10 minutes plus, so they can get maximum mid-roll ads.
The AMPTP includes basically all of the major producers from Disney to Sony and Warner Brothers. This also includes streamers like Netflix and Amazon. On the other hand, the Screen Actors Guild and American Federation of Television and Radio Artists, SAG-AFTRA, are striking against the same producers. The Actors Union represents like 160,000 people, and they started their strike July the 14th. So for the first time in a while, the actors and writers are striking. As to be expected, due to them not being able to reach an agreement, the industry looks a little different. Movies and shows have been delayed.
Okay. This guy claims to be a libertarian, right? I'm pretty sure he claims to be a libertarian. I know he's like a based gun guy. I respect that he's pro-gun. I like guns. Guns are based. I like guns. So is he a legit libertarian who likes the idea of, I imagine, what he would call corporatist, non-real capitalist individuals at the top of Hollywood who he regularly accuses of being woke, being striked against for more leverage and control by the broader population that works for them? Like, you would think he'd be in favor of something like that as a libertarian? But he's not going to be, of course. He won't be. He won't be.
Or left in limbo because...
You'll notice, by the way, that a lot of the rhetoric about certain media being woke has directed away from the top-up executives being quote-unquote disconnected and not knowing what gamers want or what people who watch nerd media want or whatever. It's moved away from that criticism more towards it being woke developers, woke writers, woke actors. They want the workers that make the projects to be fired. They're blaming the people who are creating the art now instead of the people at the top. A large part of this was because of this strike situation where they wanted to create ill will against the strikers. That's funny, because my Final Fantasy free company is called the Soul Strikers, and we all have the last name Striker on Final Fantasy 14, which, by the way, if you want to join my free company, !FC in my website chat, and you'll get a link to the Discord. I hang out in there a lot in the voice chat, and it's a good way to play video games with me. There's a really robust free trial. Hop on there with me. That's my shill. Me shilling my free company on FF14. Guarantee this guy interrupts what he's saying to do a sponsored segment at some point in the video.
Because writers aren't writing and actors aren't working, nor are they appearing on the promotional trail. The easy chicken shit generic position that will be adopted by anybody with a following is to side with the actors and writers. That
very good argument making to start by insulting the people who are taking the side of the strikers before you've even made your argument against them. Very just kind of leading in and making clear that this content is only for people who already agree with you and hate workers.
ensures them the least amount of public backlash, and it's the safest position to take. This is because class struggle, like many other socialistic, collectivistic-minded people.
The concept of class struggle is not socialist, okay? It's just not. The idea that people of a lesser financial and social class in a society struggle is not a socialist concept. It's just reality.
They find that attractive and will always side with the ones with less money. Fist in the air, backing the working class is what many...
The lefties will always side with the ones with less money. Generally, when it comes to an economic situation like this that has to do with who's getting paid a living wage or not in one of the highest cost of living like cities in the world, a place and for an industry that you cannot commute from outside the city to work that job, yeah, no, I do think that maybe it's worth siding with the people who have less money. I like how just, like, front-facing forward he is about how he sides with the powerful people with the money. That's who the good guys are.
Many people believe themselves to be doing. The employer is always evil, and the employee...
Hey, if the good guys are the ones with all the power and money, why aren't things good?
Is always the innocent party. This applies even when you talk about rich people and their struggles. Think about it with sports. We see this in like the NBA all the time. If there is a dispute, the owner or the league is always viewed as the bad guy. They are the problem in this.
But this is not true. Honestly, in a lot of cases, it's the other way around, where the large corporation defends a smaller individual within said corporation doing a woke thing, as they'd call it, and the company defends it, much to the chagrin of people like Eric July and the rest of the online grifters. I don't know. Rich people struggles, Lamau. Yeah. Rich people struggles. You know, the hard lives of the top CEOs and executives in these media companies.
Equation, despite this conflict being between millionaires and billionaires. But forgive me if I don't take your word.
There it is. You know what's funny? Even my mom fell for this narrative. The idea that the people who are striking are millionaires. I had to debunk this in an argument with my own mom, who's generally very left-leaning and pro-union, pro-socialism and stuff. I like, generally, on a lot of issues, she's just very left-leaning. But she fell for the propaganda on this one. No. The vast majority of people working in writing jobs, acting jobs, directing, well, probably not directing jobs, but yeah, honestly, most productions aren't high level enough for the director to get paid much. Most people working in Hollywood are working in low level Hollywood. This strike started with the low level actors whose names you probably don't even know going on strike. The low level writers whose names you probably don't even know going on strike. The reason that you even know about this strike is because the big actors, the big millionaire actors, decided to show solidarity and join in on the strike and refuse to join in on any productions. The big writers and the big directors and what have you, all of the people in the industry, down to like caterers and coordinators for like lighting and film, the camera operators and whatnot. All these people striked together, and that's what gave them so much leverage and so much media attention. And the people who are against the strike are now trying to say, well, 0.1% of the actors striking are millionaires that everybody knows the name of, so we'll just claim that's all of them, and it's just a bunch of greedy millionaires who want more money. But in reality, most of these people working in the acting or in the film industry that are striking have roommates. They're living in extremely overpriced studio and 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom apartments in LA, living with multiple roommates just to be able to pay the bills. Because they can't live outside the city. They can't commute. They have to be within a reasonable driving distance from work, which means they have to live in the city. The most expensive city to live in America.
For it and think we need to dissect this issue. It's no secret I'm not a fan of unions. I think they're kind of gay. G-H-E-Y gay. This is because I understand.
Whoa, so edgy.
And the history of unions, especially in America. Most people foolishly believe that unions are generally good and are solely in place to protect the workers from abuse of their employer. Others think that.
Hey, YoungRippa. Are you in favor of police unions? Are you? I feel like you might be in favor of police unions. Because I have a feeling you're in favor of police unions. What's your opinion on police unions? Just a little curious about what your thoughts are on those. Maybe, just asking.
That we'd all be working 24/7 had it not been for the unions. This is ahistorical, and I'll give you an example. Some union clowns will probably tell you that modern workplace improvements are due to unions. However, Henry Ford did far more for workers, and it was absent of unions.
So, it is true that Henry Ford set the standard for reducing work weeks from 6 to 5. And a few other things that he standardized as part of his way of doing things. But the idea that Henry Ford is responsible for workplace law, such as, do you realize that it was striking workers and activists who got child labor banned, who got work hours limited to an amount that is reasonable and won't necessarily kill you in this country. The people that this guy refers to as like whiny, crazy lefty commies are the reason, whether he likes it or not, that we are not working ourselves to death in this country with no rights whatsoever as workers. We had to fight for this shit.
1914 for strictly
Well, not we. Our ancestors had to fight for that shit.
competitive reasons, Ford imposed 8-hour shifts, a little over 2 weeks of paid vacation, and a higher minimum wage. This was over 20 years before the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938. People wrongfully give unions credit for basics.
Okay, Ford did it, and so unions have no responsibility, and union workers and strikers and the working class protesting and using their political power to get these laws put in place has absolutely no say in it. It was actually these business owners who owned factories they care so much about the safety and the health of their workers that they voluntarily fought to get laws put in place to keep their workers safe, to make sure that they have to make sure their workers are safe and get paid a certain amount. They voluntarily did that. How nice of them. Aren't billionaire factory owners such nice, kind people? God, so nice of them to do that. I totally believe you.
Like an 8-hour workday when Ford did it long before, and he despised unions. But people thinking unions are great.
Also, let's not even consider, like Kevin Gretel just said, let's not even consider the possibility that any of these companies made changes like this in order to avoid their workers unionizing. You know, that's not even a possibility that we're going to consider.
Are saying it as a coping mechanism. Many people are being extorted by not only having to pay union fees, but also because the unions dominate their industry and make it almost impossible to exist in said industry without being members of that union. It's a lot easier to just say it's for your own good and you benefit than admitting that you had no real choice in the first place, which is hilarious because
I don't think I like compulsory union membership, but like that's not an argument against unions existing. That's an argument against compulsory union membership. Also, I think compulsory union membership is really rare. There's not a lot of jobs that require you to be in a union. There's definitely a handful, but not many.
You can't talk unions in America without talking about
being union is much more commonly a privilege than it is a requirement.
Their mafia ties. Many unions today still act in that same extortive manner while also being wings of the state.
He's trying to claim that unions are mafia adjacent and use mafia tactics.
There's a reason why many of them fought for legislation back in the gap to prevent employers from hiring replacement workers should they go on strike. But I digress because this isn't supposed to be.
Did he just say it's bad that these pro-union groups argued for laws that banned employers from firing and replacing striking workers? Yeah, that's a good thing. That's part of why a strike matters. It's being able to shut down your employer's ability to make money until he gives in to the collective will of his employers or his employees. That's the point.
Some anti-union video. Getting back to the point, what exactly are the complaints and demands of the unions? What are the specifics? Well, let's start with the WGA. They, of course, want more money. Their claim is that 49% of the WGA members are making the minimum rate and that rider pay has declined 14%. They say, including inflation, rider-producer pay is down 23%. So let's give context. Here are the most recent minimums. According to the recent numbers, the minimum for a screenplay with a budget of $5 million or more, it's around $145,000. For a budget below that, it's $70,000.
Let's look at the city they live in. Living wage in LA. The living wage rates effective July 1st, 2023 will increase. Well, this is a law. Living wage needed in LA. According to a study, a Los Angeles resident without children, just on their own, needs to make $76,710 after taxes to live comfortably. That's after taxes. Mind you, he's cherry-picking this as well, because on top of that, you need to pay for transportation and shit tons of other stuff. And this is the low end, 77,000. This is what 40% are getting paid, 77,000 before taxes. The high end is 145,000 before taxes. Why? We can literally read what it says on screen. Do you think that most productions in Hollywood are getting $5 million? Like, we can literally read what it says on screen if we pause.
$7,000, give or take. If it's a week-to-week feature, it's a $6,300 a week thing. For TV, there are a lot more qualifiers, but as an example, a week-to-week gig is like $5,000.
Also, you're not even considering the fact that a lot of TV production is moving to streaming where they don't get royalties. It's one single check. They don't get royalties when it's streamed. That's been a huge problem in this industry, but you won't bring that up.
Minimum. If it's network prime time under 30 minutes, it's $27,000 a minimum for that gig. If it's under an hour, it's $39,000 or so dollars minimum. And if it's not prime time under 30 minutes, it's almost $16,000, and under 60 minutes.
Yep. You understand that cable's dying and streaming is dominant now where they get no royalties, right? Not only that, but in the movie industry, the same is the case, where streaming is the primary rewatching method, and box office numbers off the bat are what are primarily focused on now by studios. So you can't make movies like you could anymore back in the day, where you could reliably get a decent amount of money for the production in the form of over-the-time views on television and DVD or VHS sales. You have to have a box office hit for it to actually make money back. So it's really changed the way movies are made now. And streaming's added a lot to the fire in that respect.
It's around $28,000 to $29,000. For things like streaming services, it has quite a few qualifiers as well. As an example, if it's between 20 and 35 minutes and between 1 to 2.1 million in terms of its budget, minimum it's almost.
This is what they're asking for, I believe.
$16,000, and that number increases the higher the budget and the higher the run time. As I've said, the minimums range, but you can get the general idea. These also aren't daily gigs, and even if they only spent next to no hours pumping it out, whatever that script may be, they still are expected.
I watched a video by a popular YouTuber and actor in Hollywood. He's been in like close to 100 productions, and he said, "Do you want to know what my best year was? Do you want to know what my best year in the acting industry was? I got 6 gigs. I got 6 gigs, and I made $40,000 after taxes from them." And that guy's like a known YouTuber who's been in like 100 productions. I recognize the guy as like a relatively, like, you know, like a regularly occurring side character in a bunch of TV shows. Like, that is just the regular experience of most mid-tier, and especially it's worse for like the lower tier. And I don't mean that in an insulting way, but if you were to like rank them in terms of their success in Hollywood so far is the key word. That's like where they'd be.
To be paid that minimum. They also want better residuals when it comes to things like streaming. Here's the kicker. They already are getting residuals. They just want more on the front end and the back end. This seems more
greedy workers, am I right? Fuck these greedy workers. How dare they ask for a living wage?
Or like a way to force the hand of producers so that they are more transparent with their streaming numbers. This actually may end up backfiring because, as we all know, streaming isn't that profitable for these studios. Regardless, the minimums they get right now don't even consider profit. It's percentage of general sales and payment for rights. Anybody that says this isn't about the money is lying.
Who's saying it's not about the money? Of course it's about the money. Yeah, they want to be paid more. No one's denying that. That's what they are saying they want. So is he now trying to move the goalpost to the left is claiming this isn't about money? Yeah, of course it's about money. They need to eat. Exactly, Zombie. Yeah. No wonder this guy's losing subs. Even his own fans must be able to see how incoherent his argumentation is.
Almost all of the pattern of demands have to do with money in some way, shape, or form. Sure, there are some that are no-brainers. They want to address what they deem as abuses in the mini room, but nearly all of the bullet points, including the pension plans, have to do with money or protecting their money. They also, of course, discuss AI and want protections against its use.
Yes! There have been several actors that have been coerced into signing contracts that permanently give studios the legal right to their likeness without any need to pay them. So now anytime their voice or their likeness gets used in any way, they don't need to be paid for it. They want it, and not only that, but they're trying to make it so studios can't develop AI of an actor and just use it for their own purposes and never pay them. Because right now, that's completely possible, and they don't want that to be possible, so they're trying to keep it from being allowed. How can you be against that?
because they feel that'll put them out of jobs. So depending on what way you look at it, some make the argument that considering the quality, these guys are making too much money. But let's move on really quick to the
I like that little jab there. Some would argue the quality of media nowadays says they're making too much money. I like that. He adds on that they should be making less money on top of all of it. He's against them getting paid more. He wants them to make less. I think that'll be the title of this video, by the way. Cherry, can you hear me right now? Cherry? Make the title of this video, YoungRippa wants the strikers to make less. Or, yeah, how about just wants strikers to make less? Simply that. I feel like just the most broad title is appropriate.
The actors unions, what do they want? Well, SAG-AFTRA wants something similar. They worry about AI and want to regulate its use. Addressing streaming is a big point. The union wants at least 2% of all revenue, not profit, generated by these streaming shows. They also want higher minimum rates and 11% general wage increases. Despite this being a gig economy, they want better pensions and health care as such. SAG-AFTRA has much longer of a list of demands. But my position on these strikes differs from most. Most are so worried about taking a side, namely the side of the actors or writers. I don't look at it this way. Make no mistake, they both need each other, so they are going to reach a deal. Hell, maybe by the time you see this video,
they did, and the strikers won.
Will have reached a deal. Anybody that says this is a situation of working class versus mega corporation, though, is lying as well. The unions in this...
Let's go ahead and look at the average income of the average striker. The union's 160,000 members join the 11,000 Writers Guild of America members who have been striking since May. Let's see if we can find the number. $27.73 per hour. That's how much the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics reported as the average pay for California actors in 2022. However, the BLS noted in the data that actors aren't paid full-time year-round due to the nature of the job. That's a big part of it, too, you have to consider, is that this job is very on and off for most of these actors, and they're constantly looking for work. So, like, when they have work, it's like this island of stability that's very fleeting. A bit like being a YouTuber. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson was the highest paid actor of 2022, ranking in $270 million, according to the Forbes list of highest paid entertainers. $270 million in a year is the cap for highest paid entertainer. That's surprisingly low. Is anyone else surprised at how relatively low that is? Wouldn't you think, like, there are entertainers out there making $500,000 a year? That's crazy. That's actually surprisingly low. Johnson received hefty paydays from his roles in Jungle Cruise and Red Notice, but according to Forbes, the majority of his earned income in 2022 came from his tequila brand, Terramana. The minimum amount of money a performer must take home 1 year to qualify for health insurance is $26,470. However, while well-known actors are paid millions of dollars to star in movies and TV shows, many members of SAG-AFTRA don't bring in enough income each year to meet the union's minimum requirement. According to Sean Sharma, an actor and SAG-AFTRA board member, just 12.7% of SAG-AFTRA members qualify for the union's health plan. So as it stands, the union itself isn't even able to provide most of their members with the benefits that it offers because they can't afford to pay the union fees. Because these union members make so little. Union fees are unfortunately very high, but they're necessary for the union to exist and be able to afford to pay everybody. It's like taxes for a small institution. It sucks, but if everybody who can afford to pays into it, then there's mutual aid almost for everybody. And it's not a perfect system, but it's better than just being left to the wolves.
Case are as pro-megacorp as anybody else. The more accurate way to assess this is that one side is begging for the access to the resources of the money holders. So ask yourself, if we are to believe that these production companies are the greedy devils, why on earth are they working so damn hard to make a deal with the devil?
Because they're employers and there's no alternative. They have no choice. Just enormous IQ take.
This is inexcusable. Now more than ever have the means been more affordable and decentralized. The internet...
Also, you're the one saying they're the devil. The whole devil thing that's a machination of your brain. You completely constructed this narrative in your own head.
It has ensured more connectivity with like-minded individuals. If you have a great idea, you can connect with people to make dreams come true with a decent budget. And let these people tell it, we are dealing with the most creative, valuable people in the world. Yet for some reason, all the
Why does he have to, like... I see why his content's falling off. He can't even take the pseudo-intellectual route. He has to do this weird passive-aggressive, like he doesn't even pretend to take, like, left-wing people seriously in his videos.
Solutions require a deal with the devil. These geniuses have been unable to find a way to evolve from the current setup of entertainment. These people won't pull their resources together and come up with their own studios that are disconnected from the mega corporations.
Just make your own studios is now their take. Before it was make your own games, make your own movies, and they got mad when they made their own games and made their own movies. Now it's make your own studios.
There has never been a better time than now to have that be the focus, yet this isn't even considered, and that shouldn't be ignored. Either these people aren't as competent as we're led to believe, or there is far much more to the story, possibly both. If these people spent their energy coming up with creative ways to correct the problems they have, they wouldn't need to beg.
Like what? A good one is striking. Coordinating a strike like this is a pretty creative solution. Pretty impressive, too. I like how his like, here's what you should do is a vague, non-specific statement that means nothing. When what the strikers are doing is actually something that actually did something.
For scraps from the devil. I can't give these people any leeway. Why? Because I did it. I saw a problem with the comic book industry. These issues were creative and economic. I didn't like...
Here it is, his shill for his own comics, which, by the way, apparently have completely fallen off and are making no money. And he's apparently under fire right now for apparent charity fraud. Did he make a superhero who has a cross? Did he make a religious superhero? Are these supposed to be the villains in the background? Is this supposed to be like a gangster dude bearing gold grills on his teeth? Why does it look like a GTA 5 loading screen? Like, tell me this doesn't look like an over-the-top parody, like a parody that like a parody art that GTA would do for like a loading screen. It's literally ridiculous. And the superhero concept of the Jesus superhero feels very GTA satire as well. Very Rockstar kind of satire.
Like the direction of the general content, and I don't like how creatives
yeah, you're right. It's a chastity belt. The cross protects his crotch. It protects his cock from the evils of pussy. And maybe bunghole.
On time, or they're paid very little. So I took a risk. I invested hundreds of thousands of my own dollars, and now we've made more than $6 million.
That's hard to hear. Ooh.
In sales in a year, and everybody here is paid competitively and on time. My contractors get the money almost immediately upon submission of their work. For our books, we have favorable bonus structures for our writers, and our employees get benefits. And should there ever be a problem, we can address it and pivot when needed. This is why our folks don't shriek the Rippaverse like it's just some other gig. They scream it from the mountaintops that they work for this company. But the actors and writers...
Dude, you guys gotta make sure I don't forget to check in on this channel over the next couple, like, months. I really want to make sure I'm there to watch the downfall of this entire company and brand and his entire channel.
In entertainment aren't trying to evolve from the unions or making deals with the megacorps. The other non-striking entertainers, like directors that cheer these people on, aren't coming up with creative ideas to evolve either or work with them. Here's the truth and why it's a match made in hell. The status quo, regardless of how much they complain about it, is much more preferable than the uncertainty that comes with independence. The megacorporations are the only entities that can assume that type of risk, lose millions and even billions of dollars, yet still pay these people even in poor performance. They are able to...
This is just him ranting about how, like, desperate and evil and greedy the workers are. And, like, it's kind of funny because the strikers got what they wanted, and this video's, like, you know, a little bit older. So everything that he didn't get what he wanted. The strikers didn't make less money. They're now making more, and they got a bunch of their demands.
Subsidize so many of these fake jobs, and that gives them a sense of importance. In the event that the entire industry is fundamentally changed, yet there may not be billion-dollar films ever again. The way we look at TV will be completely different. And to that I say, so what? That doesn't mean things wouldn't be extremely profitable. What it does mean is that many of you wouldn't make it on the other side because it'd be more merit-based. You'll also be forced to see...
I love fake libertarians. They're like, we live in a meritocracy. If somebody has made it, it's because they worked hard. What about that guy over there whose parents are super rich and he got to go to private school and had private tutoring and like the best teachers and best living environment ever. Was like, did he put in more meritocratical effort than the kid who was raised by a single mom next door to a crack house in the inner city, whose school is paid for by like really low income property taxes, so the teachers make no money and don't love their job and hate teaching, and the police are looking for any excuse? I don't know. I don't think we live in a meritocracy, personally.
The economic reality, and your pockets will be punished in the event you produce things that nobody wanted. You wouldn't be able to fail upwards like so many of you do. That's the one thing that I will agree with that unions are good for: protecting bad and mediocre people.
Unions are good for protecting bad and mediocre people. God, he's so mad. Do you think his workers are trying to unionize? Guys, do you think the workers for his comic are trying to unionize? Because this is emotional. No one gets this emotional about this topic and being this anti-union unless they have a very personal tie to it. Do you think his workers are trying to unionize and they're threatening to? Oh, that'd be funny.
Mega corporations are the only ones that can do that. These people are as pro mega corporation as anybody else, like I've said before, and don't let them get away with acting like this is some sort of working class bullcrap. If you all collectively decided to be detached from these mega corporations, your industry would...
That's what a strike is, until they do the things that make them not bad. That's literally what a strike is. You're saying, why do they want to work with these companies if they're so bad? Because if the companies give in to their deal, then the companies won't be bad.
Change for the better. Funding shouldn't be an issue. The actors at the top of these unions have a lot of money, and if you can't, go crowdfund it or something. If people actually want it,
they did crowdfund a lot of money, and a lot of people volunteered to like feed and water and provide shade for these strikers voluntarily in order to help them, because they all recognize how good of a goal this is to achieve.
They subsidize it, but that's not attractive, is it? It's much better, according to you, to have some institution that can spend $200 million on something that people don't want. So call everybody and their mother a scab because they aren't kissing the ass of the union. That won't change the fact that you refuse to be a part of the solution instead.
So is everybody now a scab who's against the unions, or is everybody being a pussy and being pro-union because it's the easy option? What is it now? We've gone from everyone is wrong to everyone is right in one video.
And you work to ensure the power of the billion-dollar corporations, and they know you need them to subsidize your bad ideas so that you don't assume much risk. The way of the future is decentralization. Instead of having billion-dollar corporations, you'd have $1,000,000 and $1,000 productions.
Yeah, how's that going to work without government overreach, buddy? Are the companies just going to do that on their own? Is that just going to happen all the time? Is it do these big corporations exist only because of government guidelines that prevent corporations from doing things that help them balloon massively through harmful means? Is it somehow the government's fault that corporations are so big?
Maybe it becomes more niche, and that's only
You could make the argument that the government gives these large corporations big bailouts when the economy's in the shit and they f themselves in the stock market. I mean, those companies kind of provide very vital necessities. It's usually companies that, like, without them operating, like we'd kind of be pretty fucked, to be fair. So as bad as the government bailouts are, when you look into them a little deeper, you're like, I don't know if I want Microsoft to go under. That seems like it would be bad.
a problem for those that don't really want solutions and are just putting on a performance for the public. Nobody on this side claims that it would be easy to do what I'm suggesting. I've done it already.
By the way, if you think that's impossible, you don't know the stock market. Like, I think the Wall Street Bets thing kind of brought this to a lot of people's attention. Massive multi-billion-dollar corporations with tens of billions of dollars worth of assets can literally go bankrupt if the right things happen in the stock market in a week. If the economy goes into a recession and the right things happen, it can happen in a week. It's insane how cumulative losses can be in the stock market, and a lot of these companies' value is held in stock.
There will be challenges, but at minimum, you can address your gripes. You can solve them instead of begging someone else, especially someone that you deem as evil and greedy, to embrace your ideals.
Bro, the whole point of capitalism is having new businesses take over the old businesses. You can't do that if you bail them out. Absolutely not true, because if a company is just, there's tons of businesses that are completely vital that have been superseded despite there being government bailouts because another company comes along and does it better. So it literally still happens. I don't know how you're saying it can't happen if we do bailouts. It's happening all the time. Companies get replaced. However, when it's something that's so necessary to culture, like our society's function, yeah, the government needs to bail them out. I know it sucks, but that's how it is. Don't get too libertarian brained. It's a poison, okay? It's a poison.